Hi, I'm Ashley from Sunny Made, and today is Free Quilt Pattern Day. Hi friends, welcome back. I am glad you are here. This week we are going to make a whole quilt together. In the past, I have always done a quilt pattern that is from a pre-cut, and I decided on the block I was going to teach you, and I was going to do it from charm packs. And then I actually got in my car, funny enough, got in my car to go to the store to get more charm packs. And I started backing out of my garage, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have so much fabric that I should be able to make something from something I already have. And so I thought about it real quick, and I thought, oh, I have some yardage, a couple of half yard pieces that go together that I am going to use instead. So this month we are going to use half-yard pieces, or you can use scraps because it's definitely a scrappy quilt if you wanted to make it that way. So let me show you what I'm going to use. I have some fun ombre fabric, and it's got a little bit of fall to it. So I thought this was perfect. Let me show you what this looks like. I love the color of this. Look how pretty this is. And this is V & Company. It's called Ombre Galaxy Metallic. She has put out many different ombres. Right now, there's actually ones with hearts that I'm going to get at my local quilt store that I'm super excited. But this one is Galaxy, so it has gold and dark green speckles on it. And I thought, we could make some fun pieces with this. So I have 5 different half yards from this fabric. That would be a great place to start. If you want to use your scraps, this would be a great scrappy quilt. We are just going to be using 5 inches and 2.5 inches. And so, like I said, I was originally going to use charm packs, but thought, let's do something fun with what I already have. And of course, I need some background fabric. With this being the color it is, I'm going to use snow. I use 2 different background fabrics. I use pure white for those that need a pure white, and I use snow for those fabric that needs a little off-white, and that's all I use. And so I'm going to use snow on this one. So gather up your fabric and meet me at the cutting mat. Okay, first what you want to do is make sure you iron your fabric really nicely, and then we are going to start cutting it. So we are going to start by making one strip that is 4.5 inches. And then from the rest of your fabric, you're going to make 2.5 inch strips. Make sure that your ruler doesn't move. Mine doesn't have any of the rubber things on the bottom of it, so it moves every now and then. Okay, from our 4.5 inch strip, we are going to divide this into 4.5 inch squares. And really what I want you to do is to see how many you can get from it. When I was doing a different color, I was able to get 9 from it. So if I just go down this way, and this is going to be super fun because we have mold. It'll go from a dark to a light. And also, because of the way it is, there's more speckles on the darker part, and there's less speckles on the lighter stuff. Now with this last piece, it is on the fold. I'm just going to open it up and get one last square from it. If you need to, hit it with an iron first before you trim it, because it does have that seam in it. So you should be able to get 9 4.5-inch squares from one strip of fabric. Now, from our 2.5-inch strip, after we take off our salvage edge, what we're going to do is we are going to do a 2.5-inch square, and then you're going to go 4.5 inches. And then you're going to go 2.5, and then 4.5. And from this one, you should also be able to get, you'll end up with 6 2.5-inch squares and 6 2.5-inch by 4.5-inch rectangles. Okay, so here is your cutting. So I want you to do that to all 5 of your colors. Now, when you do the original cutting of your yardage, I only showed you the first of the 2. You should be able to get 1 4.5-inch strip and 5 2.5-inch strips from this. And when that is all done, you will have several different piles of some fun fabric. I love the way this is turning out, and with it being ombre, it's going to be super fun. So let me get my cheat sheet so I can tell you exactly how they've come out. So the strips that are 2.5 inches by 4.5 inches and 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, you will get 30 of each color. From the 4.5-inch squares, that's a lot of words right there. Okay, 4.5-inch squares, you will have, so 9 of each color and 5 colors is 45
Okay,
squares.
I want to take a quick second and go through our calculations real quick. From each half yard, you have 5 half yards. From each half yard, you are going to make 1 4.5-inch strip and 5 2.5-inch strips. Okay, from that 1 4.5-inch strip, you are going to cut 9 4.5 by 4.5-inch squares. Okay, from your 2.5-inch strips, we need, let me show you, from each color, a 2.5-inch square and a 2.5-inch by 4.5-inch rectangle. So you need both of these for each block. Okay, you will have 28 sets of these from our strip. Now, our goal is to make 72 blocks. I'm going to do this in an 8 wide and a 9 down pattern. That gives me a 64-inch by 72-inch rectangle quilt. Okay, but because we are only getting 9 squares from each color, and we only have 5 colors, that is 45 squares, and we need 72 for the center of our block. So what I'm going to do is cut 3 strips from my background fabric that are 44.5 inches, just like I did to create these, and I'm going to make the rest of my blocks, my center pieces of my blocks. So what I'm going to need is 27 middle pieces that are 4.5 by 4.5. Okay, I will then cut 2.5-inch strips of our background fabric for the setting up these pieces on the rest of our quilt block. Since I need 2 2.5-inch square pieces and two 2.5-inch by 4.5-inch square rectangle pieces, I need to cut 144 2.5-inch square and 144 2.5-inch by 4.5-inch rectangle pieces from the background fabric. And that will allow us to start putting our block together. Okay, it's time to start laying out our block. We have all of our pieces sitting here. So first we're going to take a 4.5-inch square. That is going to be our center. We are then going to need two 2.5-inch squares in the colored or pattern fabric and two 2.5-inch squares in the background fabric. And we are going to lay it out like this. We are then going to coordinate our pattern fabric and create a box around the corners of this square in the middle. Now you have a couple options here. You can do same color in the opposite corners, or grab a different color and put it in the opposite corners. And I think I actually like it this way, which is how I am planning to put all of my quilt blocks together. Now we only have 45 of this pattern fabric for the center of the block. So we have cut out 27 of the background fabric. And so we are going to be making 27 blocks with this background fabric in the center instead of the pattern fabric. Okay, let's talk about how we are going to sew this together. First, we're going to sew together the 2.5-inch squares here on the side, pressing towards the darker fabric. And then we're going to sew the top rectangles together, pressing towards the background fabric. Okay, so I got all my pieces sewn together. And here is what this is going to look like. I'm now going to sew my sides together, press towards the middle fabric, and then I'm going to sew my top and bottom pieces together. We have our block. It is all done. This should be 8.5 by 8.5. So I'm going to get my 8.5 square. We should line up the vertical line at 4.25 and the horizontal line at 4.25. And I'm just going to give it a quick trim. Looks like it's not great, but I like the way it turned out. Mainly, I'm trimming off my threads because I've got lots of them. Okay, so here you go. You have your block. I want you to take all your other pieces, put blocks together, and then we will put our quilt together. Okay, here is our finished quilt. I didn't quite get it finished. I did get it quilted, but I didn't get it bound. So let me show you how I put these blocks together. As you can see here, I put the cornered pattern fabric towards the center and then the white background fabric towards each other. And what this allows us to do is it creates some cool white lines and some cool pattern lines. Now you don't have to put it together. You can put it together so that your pattern corner is next to a white corner. But I love the way this turned out. So, and the lines that it created, my diagonal lines. So obviously I'm going to keep it. Play with the layout, play with where you want your center background fabric, and have a fun time with it and see what it comes up with. I would love to see how it turns out. Make sure that you tag me on Instagram at Ashley_SunnyMade, or you can drop it in the comment section below. If you have any questions, don't forget to ask them as well, and like and subscribe. I will see you next week. Happy sewing.